I'm Bridget, 34, HR manager. I've been a dedicated supporter of workplace inclusivity and women's career advancement throughout my career. Finally, get promoted to head of HR for the solutions department after years of fighting for recognition. This is my chance to make real change and show what progressive hiring looks like. Department has been male dominated for too long. Time to fix that. First day in charge. Look at department demographics. 22 employees, 16 men, 6 women. This is exactly the kind of systemic inequality I've been talking about. Clearly, previous management had unconscious bias against female candidates. Time to implement some real equity measures. Call meeting with department heads. Explain my vision for balanced hiring practices. Bill, the lead project manager, raises concerns. Bridget, I understand wanting diversity, but we need to hire based on project needs and skills first. Typical male response. Always trying to maintain the status quo. Bill, that's exactly the kind of thinking that created this imbalance. We need to actively correct decades of bias. But Bridget, we have 3 major client deliveries coming up. What we need is to stop making excuses and start making real change over next 6 months. Focus hiring exclusively on qualified female candidates. Not hard to find them. Women are just as capable as men, often more so. Hire Sarah for senior analyst role, brilliant data scientist from competing firm. Hire Jennifer for project coordination, excellent organizational skills. Hire Lisa for client relations, outstanding communication abilities. Hire Michelle for technical writing, perfect academic background. Hire Amanda for quality assurance, a meticulous attention to detail. Hire Rebecca for business development, natural relationship builder. By month 4, department is 14 men, 14 women, perfect balance achieved through strategic hiring. Finally proving that equitable workplaces are possible when someone has the vision. Bill approaches me again, looking stressed. Bridget, I need to talk to you about staffing continuity planning. What about it? Well, 6 of our new hires are all around the same age, and I was thinking, stop right there, Bill. If you're about to suggest what I think you're suggesting, that's illegal. I'm not suggesting anything discriminatory. I just think we should have backup plans for what? For when women exercise their basic reproductive rights. That's not what I meant. This conversation is inappropriate and I'm documenting it. Bill gets frustrated, voice rising slightly. Bridget, I'm not being discriminatory. I'm talking about basic workforce planning. What happens if multiple people take leave at the same time? That's a hypothetical scenario you're using to justify continued bias. It's not bias, it's planning. What if 3 people get sick at once? What if there's a family emergency? What if? What if you focused on supporting your female colleagues instead of creating imaginary problems? Bill walks away shaking his head. Typical male fragility when challenged on their assumptions. Month 6. Get amazing news. Sarah announces she's pregnant, due in 5 months. So happy for her. This is exactly why we need better maternity policies. Start working on enhanced leave package to support her. 2 weeks later, Jennifer comes to my office beaming. Also pregnant, due around the same time as Sarah. What are the odds? Must be something in the water, we joke. Already planning how to make this the most supportive workplace for new mothers. Month 7, Michelle stops by during lunch. Bridget, I have some wonderful news. Pregnant too, due just a few weeks after Sarah and Jennifer. This is incredible. Like the universe is validating our progressive hiring. 3 strong women about to become mothers. Proof that you can have career and family. Week later, Amanda schedules private meeting. Hands me positive pregnancy test with huge smile. Due date almost exactly between Michelle and Rebecca. 4 pregnancies. This is like a fairy tale of work-life balance. Lisa and Rebecca both come forward within days of each other. Both pregnant, due within 6 weeks of the others. 6 pregnancies announced within 3 weeks. This is unprecedented, beautiful, perfect timing for our new family-friendly policies. Bill requests urgent meeting. Storms into my office, face red with anger. Bridget, we have a serious problem. If you're about to complain about my colleagues' personal lives, 6 people, 6 key positions, all due within 2 months of each other. And that's a beautiful thing, Bill. Beautiful. Bridget, these women handle critical client deliverables. Sarah manages the Integrated Solutions project. Jennifer coordinates the Morrison account. Michelle writes all our technical documentation, all of which can be handled by capable team members. Bill slams his hand on T-desk, genuinely angry now. With what team members? You've created a department where half the specialized knowledge is about to walk out the door simultaneously. They're taking legally protected leave, not walking out for 4 months minimum each. That's 2/3 of our senior staff gone at the same time. Bill, your hostility toward pregnant women is exactly why we need better policies. This isn't hostility, this is basic math. 6 critical positions, 0 backup coverage, 4 months minimum absence each. His voice gets louder, more frustrated. Do you understand what this means for the rest of us? Jake and I are going to have to cover Sarah and Jennifer's project loads. Tom and Kevin will have to split Michelle and Amanda's responsibilities. David and Brian will handle Lisa and Rebecca's client relationships. That's not sustainable, Ma. Then we'll hire temporary contractors. With what budget? And who's training them? The people with institutional knowledge will be on leave. Bill, you're catastrophizing. I'm stating facts. You hired 6 women for critical positions without any succession planning. Bill paces angrily. My wife is pregnant too, Bridget. Due around the same time as your new hires. You know what that means? While she's dealing with a newborn, I'll be working 80-hour weeks covering for absent colleagues. I'll miss my child's first months because of your ideological hiring spree. That's not my fault. It absolutely is your fault. You created this situation. You dismissed every warning about workforce planning. Week later, David from Client Relations requests meeting. He looks exhausted before the crisis even starts. Bridget, I need to understand the transition plan for when Rebecca and Lisa go on leave. We'll cross-train existing staff. Who? I'm the only other person in Client Relations. You want me to handle 32 active accounts alone? Temporarily? Yes. Temporarily? Bridget, that's 18 months of combined leave between them. David, I understand your concerns. No, you don't understand. My daughter has soccer games. My son has school concerts. My wife works full-time. If I'm covering for 2 people for 18 months, my family suffers. David's voice gets sharper, angrier. You know what happened when Jennifer hired all those women? You created a time bomb. Now it's exploding, and everyone else gets hit with shrapnel. That's an extremely inappropriate metaphor. It's accurate. 6 people leaving simultaneously isn't bad luck. It's poor planning. And now the rest of us pay the price. David, your attitude toward working mothers. My attitude is that I shouldn't have to sacrifice my family because you made ideological hiring decisions. He continues, voice rising with frustration. I supported every diversity initiative you've proposed. I mentored female colleagues. I advocated for better parental leave policies. But this isn't about supporting women anymore. This is about basic competence. You can't run a department by hiring people for demographic categories instead of operational needs. That's exactly the kind of thinking that perpetuates inequality. No, Bridget. Inequality is forcing working fathers to abandon their families because you refuse to plan for predictable life events. Month 8. The exodus begins. Sarah starts maternity leave 3 weeks early due to complications. Immediately, her project deadlines start slipping. Client calls asking why deliverables are delayed. Jake working double shifts trying to understand Sarah's methodologies. Jennifer goes on leave next week. Morrison account in chaos. Nobody fully understands her client relationship management system. Tom and Kevin splitting her coordination duties while maintaining their own projects. Both staying until 11 p.m. every night, trying to keep up. Emergency department meeting called by upper management. VP of Operations, Robert addresses the room, looks directly at me with barely controlled anger. Bridget, explain to me how we went from fully staffed to critically understaffed in 2 weeks. We're experiencing a temporary adjustment period. Temporary. We have 4 more people leaving in the next month. They're exercising their legal rights to family leave. Rights that you facilitated by hiring exclusively pregnant women. Robert's voice fills the room, clearly furious. Do you understand the financial impact? The Morrison contract alone is worth $2.3 million. If we default due to staffing issues, we pay penalties, plus lose future business. Sarah's integration project is tied to $1.8 million in deliverables. We're looking at potential losses exceeding $6 million. Robert, you can't blame women for having families. I'm not blaming women. I'm blaming you for creating an untenable staffing situation. Kevin stands up, visibly shaking with anger. Bridget, my wife, you scheduled our anniversary dinner 3 months ago. I've canceled 4 times because I'm covering Jennifer's workload. My marriage is suffering because of your decisions. Kevin, that's not A-plated. It absolutely is. You hired 6 people knowing they were planning families. You created this crisis. Brian joins in, voice getting louder. My son asked why daddy doesn't come home anymore. I'm working Sarah and Michelle's projects plus my own. 70-hour weeks minimum. My family thinks I abandoned them. Brian, these are temporary adjustments. Temporary? 18 months of combined leave isn't temporary, and you hired replacements. Where? Jake slams his laptop shut, furious. Where's the succession planning, Bridget? Where's the knowledge transfer documentation? Sarah left with half-finished algorithms nobody else understands. Jennifer took client relationships that existed only in her head. We're working on knowledge transfer. With who? The people who are gone. This is insane. Month 9. Michelle and Amanda both go on leave same week. Department hemorrhaging productivity. Contractors costing $200 per hour. No institutional knowledge. Overtime budget exploded 400% over projections. Clients threatening to pull contracts due to missed deadlines. Robert calls me into his office. Door slams behind us. Bridget, this stops now. What stops? This disaster you created. We're bleeding money. Jake worked 97 hours last week. David collapsed from exhaustion and spent the night in the hospital. David collapsed? Exhaustion? He's been working double shifts for 2 months straight because you created an impossible situation. Robert paces behind his desk, voice filled with rage. You want to know why some companies are hesitant about hiring women of childbearing age? This exact scenario. 6 critical positions vacant simultaneously because you hired ideologically instead of strategically. That's illegal discrimination. It's risk management. And you just proved why that risk is real. He continues, shouting, Now I don't care about anyone's gender. I care about operational continuity. You hired 6 people knowing they were planning families without creating any backup systems. That's not progressive. It's incompetent. Robert, you can't punish women for reproductive choices. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm dealing with the consequences of your choices, your hiring decisions, your refusal to plan. Month 10. Lisa and Rebecca both leave within days. Department completely crippled. Remaining 8 men covering work of 14 people. Client contracts being terminated left and right. Emergency hiring of expensive consultants just to maintain basic operations. Bill confronts me in break room, exhausted and furious. Bridget, look what you've done. Gestures at Tom sleeping at his desk during lunch break. Tom missed his daughter's birthday party yesterday. Worked until 3 a.m. His wife called me crying, asking when this ends. Bill, this is a difficult transition. Transition to what? Bankruptcy? Tom's marriage falling apart. Kevin having panic attacks from stress. His voice cracks with exhaustion and anger. You know what the worst part is? You still think you're the victim here. You still think we're all just sexist for pointing out that hiring 6 pregnant women for critical positions without backup plans was catastrophically stupid. I was trying to create equity. You created chaos. Look around. Half our contracts canned. Our team destroying their health, covering impossible workloads, and you're still lecturing us about equity. Bill continues, voice rising. My wife had our baby 2 weeks ago. You know how much time I've spent with my newborn? 6 hours total. 6 hours with my firstborn because I'm working 90-hour weeks cleaning up your mess. Sees the impact on his face for first time feeling uncertain. I didn't mean for you. Didn't think that's the problem. You hired based on demographics instead of operational reality. Month 11 financial review meeting, CFO presents devastating numbers. Department $4.7 million over budget. Contractor costs $890,000. Overtime costs $1.2 million. Contract penalties $2.1 million. Lost future business. Estimated $8.3 million. Entire executive team staring at me. Robert addresses the room. This department is functionally bankrupt. We're hemorrhaging money while delivering subpar work. Our reputation with major clients is destroyed. Stomach drops as reality hits. My progressive hiring created exactly the financial disaster everyone warned about. David returns from medical leave. Looks 20 years older. Bridget, I need you to understand something. his voice quiet but filled with controlled anger. I missed my daughter's first steps, my son's school play, my anniversary, my wife's birthday. All because you refused to listen when we told you this would happen. David, I'm sorry. I didn't realize. You didn't realize because you didn't listen. Every man in this department told you this was unsustainable. He continues, exhaustion evident. You want to know the real tragedy? I support working mothers. I support family leave. I support workplace equality. But you turned all of that into weapons against your male colleagues. That wasn't my intention. Your intentions don't matter when the results are destroying people's lives. Kevin approaches, looks defeated. Bridget, my wife left me. Shock hits like physical blow. What? She left. Took our kids. Said I chose work over family. But I didn't choose work. You chose for me when you created this staring nightmare. Realize the human cost of my decisions. For first time. Kevin, I never wanted you, never wanted to consider consequences. You wanted to prove a point about gender equity. My family was collateral damage. Jake joins the conversation, voice hollow. You know what's funny? You hired women to prove they're just as capable as men, but then when they all left simultaneously, you expected men to pick up all the slack without complaint. I expected the team to support each other. Support. Bridget, Brian's been hospitalized twice for stress-related issues. Tom's wife filed separation papers. David collapsed from exhaustion. How is that support? The weight of everything starts hitting. Look around, department. See exhausted faces. See empty desks where Sarah, Jennifer, Michelle, Amanda, Lisa, Rebecca used to sit. See remaining men who look broken, defeated, angry. Realize I created exactly the scenario that validates companies' unspoken concerns about hiring multiple women of childbearing age simultaneously. Brian walks over, voice shaking with controlled rage. You want to know what I learned from this experience, Bridget? What? That progressive hiring policies mean nothing without operational planning. You hired women to make a statement, but you didn't hire backup staff. You didn't create knowledge transfer systems. You didn't plan for predictable life events. I was fighting discrimination. No, you were proving stereotypes. You showed that hiring multiple women without strategic planning creates exactly the problems companies worry about. Tom approaches looking broken. Bridget, my daughter asked why Daddy doesn't love her anymore. Heart sinks. Tom, because Daddy's never home. Because Daddy missed every bedtime story, every dinner, every weekend for 6 months. Because you decided to use my life to prove your ideological point. I didn't mean for families to suffer, but they did. All our families did. While you felt good about your diversity statistics. Month 12, upper management meeting. Robert addresses room with barely contained fury. The solutions department is being restructured. Bridget, you're being moved to a different role. Demotion hits like physical blow. Robert, if you just give me time to time, you've had a year. A year to prove that ideology without planning works. Look at the results. He continues, voice filled with anger. 6 resignations from overworked staff. 4 divorces directly attributable to impossible work schedules. 2 stress-related hospitalizations. Nearly $5 million in budget overruns. 8 major client relationships destroyed. The maternity leaves were temporary. The damage is permanent. You think Jake's marriage heals overnight? You think Kevin gets his kids back? You think our clients forget about missed deadlines? Bill speaks up, voice raw with exhaustion. Bridget, do you understand what you proved? What do you mean? You proved exactly why some companies are afraid to hire women of childbearing age. Not because women are incompetent, but because hiring multiple women without succession planning creates operational disasters. That's not what I intended to prove, but it's what you did prove. You validated every unspoken concern about business continuity and pregnancy leave. David adds, voice bitter. The tragic part is, this could have been avoided completely. That how by hiring qualified people, regardless of gender, with proper succession planning for any employee absence, by creating systems that don't depend on individual knowledge, by listening when your male colleagues raise legitimate operational concerns. I thought you were trying to maintain male dominance. We were trying to maintain operational stability. There's a difference. Jake speaks quietly. You know what real equity looks like, Bridget? What? Hiring the best people, supporting all employees through life transitions, and planning for predictable absences, not creating situations where men sacrifice their families to cover for poor planning. I wanted to create opportunities for women. You created a cautionary tale about ideological hiring. Companies will use this department as an example of why balanced succession planning matters. Brian's voice is hollow. My wife won't speak to me. My kids barely know me. For what? So you could prove a point about gender ratios? Brian, I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix destroyed families. Sorry doesn't undo 6 months of 90-hour weeks. Sorry doesn't explain to my 8-year-old why daddy was never home. Sitting in empty department, reality finally hitting. Realize that my approach created exactly the scenario that makes companies nervous about hiring women. Not because women are less capable, but because hiring multiple people, planning families without backup systems creates unsustainable staffing gaps. Understand now that the men's concerns weren't about discrimination. They were about basic workforce management. Kevin walks by with box of personal items. Kevin? Wait, what? Bridget? I never meant for your family to suffer, but you never considered that they might. You were so focused on proving women deserve opportunities that you forgot the men who would pay the price for your poor planning. I thought I was fighting bias. You were creating new problems while ignoring obvious solutions. Hire qualified people, plan for predictable absences, cross-train staff, basic management. Tom stops at my desk. Tom, I want to apologize. Apologize to my daughter. Tell her why daddy missed her childhood because you refused to plan for maternity leaves. I didn't refuse to plan. You hired 6 pregnant women for critical positions without succession planning. If that's not refusal to plan, what is? Realize he's completely right. I was so focused on demographic targets that I ignored operational requirements. Bill approaches for final conversation. Bridget, you want to know the real tragedy here. What's the real tragedy? You could have achieved everything you wanted. Gender equity, family-friendly policies, women in leadership roles, all of it. But you approached it ideologically instead of strategically. I don't understand the difference. Strategic would be hiring qualified women while cross-training teams, creating backup systems, planning for predictable absences, building sustainable diversity. He continues, voice tired but no longer angry. Instead, you hired demographically and expected magic to solve the operational challenges. When we raised concerns, you called us sexist. When the crisis hit, you blamed everyone except your planning failures. I thought you were trying to block progress. We were trying to prevent exactly what happened. 6 good women taking maternity leave while their male colleagues sacrifice everything to keep operations running. David joins us. You know what's really unfortunate, Bridget? What? This department could have been a model for progressive workplace policies. Instead, it's going to be used as an example of how not to implement diversity initiatives. What do you mean? Companies will look at this disaster and see, this is why we can't hire multiple women of childbearing age. Your ideological approach validated their worst fears. Jake stops by. Bridget, I want you to understand something important. What? None of us opposed hiring women? We opposed hiring without succession planning. There's a crucial difference that you refuse to see. I see that now. Do you? Because for a year, you treated every operational concern as gender discrimination. You made it impossible to have honest conversations about workforce management. Brain approaches looks exhausted. You know what I learned from this experience? What did you learn? That good intentions without practical planning create disasters. You wanted to help women, but you ended up creating a situation that makes companies more hesitant to hire them. How did I do that? By proving that demographic hiring without operational planning creates exactly the problems companies worry about. You gave ammunition to actual discriminators. Month 13, sitting in new reduced role, former department completely restructured. Half the remaining men transferred to other departments. Couldn't handle the trauma. New management implementing exactly the succession planning we should have had from the beginning. Cross-training programs, backup systems, knowledge documentation, everything the men had suggested and I had dismissed as discrimination. Receive email from Sarah back from maternity leave. Bridget, I heard about the department restructuring. I feel terrible that our leaves caused so much chaos. Realize Sarah doesn't understand. It wasn't their leaves that caused chaos. It was my failure to plan for their leaves, my refusal to listen to legitimate operational concerns, my decision to hire demographically instead of strategically. Write response carefully. Sarah, your maternity leave didn't cause problems. My lack of succession planning did. I should have created systems that could handle predictable absences. First time admitting the truth. My ideological approach created the exact situation that validates companies' unspoken concerns about hiring women. Reflecting on entire experience, understand now that the men weren't opposing women's advancement. They were pointing out obvious operational challenges that I refused to address. By calling them sexist, I shut down conversations that could have prevented disaster. By hiring exclusively women without backup planning, I created unsustainable staffing gaps. By dismissing workforce planning as discrimination, I guaranteed exactly the problems companies fear. Realize the horrible irony. Wanted to prove that women deserve equal opportunities in the workplace. Instead, prove that ideological hiring without practical planning creates disasters. Wanted to show that gender shouldn't matter in employment decisions. Instead, demonstrated why some companies are nervous about hiring multiple women simultaneously. Wanted to advance women's careers. Instead, created a cautionary tale that will be used against women for years. Understand now that real progress requires both ideological commitment and practical planning. Hire qualified women and create succession systems. Support family leave and maintain operational continuity. Fight discrimination and acknowledge legitimate business concerns. The men weren't my enemies. They were trying to prevent exactly what happened. Sitting in empty office, realized the men were right all along. Their anger was justified. Their families paid the price for my refusal to plan. Their warnings could have prevented everything, but I was too ideologically committed to listen. Final realization hits hard. I didn't advance women's opportunities. I created exactly the scenario that makes companies hesitant to hire women. Proved that demographic hiring without operational planning validates every stereotype about business risks. Gave ammunition to people who actually discriminate against women. My progressive intentions created regressive outcomes. Understand now why companies secretly worry about hiring multiple women of childbearing age. Not because women are less capable, but because pregnancy leaves are predictable events that require planning. And hiring multiple people, planning families without succession systems, creates exactly what happened here. Operational disasters, burned out staff, financial losses, damaged client relationships. Men in department didn't oppose women. They opposed poor planning. Difference. I was too ideologically blind to see. Their concerns weren't discrimination. They were basic workforce management. Everything they predicted came true. Everything they warned about happened. Everything they suggested could have prevented the disaster. Bridget, 35, former HR manager, sitting in reduced role, learned the hard way that intentions don't matter if outcomes are disastrous. Learned that ideology without strategy creates problems it claims to solve. Learned that refusing to listen to legitimate concerns guarantees failure. Learned that real progress requires both vision and practical planning. Learned why companies have unspoken concerns about certain hiring scenarios. Learned that my militant approach hurt the cause I thought I was advancing. Most painful lesson of all, the men were right, and I was too stubborn to listen. If this confession kept you hooked, make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We share powerful true stories every day that explore the complex realities of life.